I see why you'd suggest that, but I'm not sure it fits our situation very well. That's a fair point, though I was hoping for a slightly different approach. I might be mistaken, but I don't think that's the best solution here. I don't disagree entirely, but I'm a bit concerned about how it would play out. That could work in theory, although I'm not sure it would be practical. I appreciate the effort you put into this, but I'm not convinced it solves the core problem.
Hey, did you get a chance to look at the feedback I sent you?
Yeah, I saw it.
Just saw it or read it?
I read it. It was thorough.
That's one way to describe it.
You clearly put a lot of thought into it.
I wanted to be helpful.
And you were. I'll take it into consideration.
Take it into consideration sounds very official.
I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said,
But,
but I'm not sure how much I can realistically change at this point.
right, deadlines do have opinions.
Exactly. It's just timing.
Timing always is.
So, no hard feelings?
None at all. I just won't expect miracles this close to the due date.
Fair enough.
So, are we still on for dinner after the meeting?
I'm free, technically.
Technically doesn't sound reassuring.
I'm just not sure how late the meeting will run.
We could keep it flexible,
Flexible usually means pending cancellation,
only if the meeting goes badly.
or if it goes long, or if everyone has feelings.
You sound tired.
I'm fine, just conserving enthusiasm.
I don't want you to feel obligated.
I don't. I just don't want to disappoint you.
You wouldn't.
Then maybe let's decide after the meeting.
So, not a yes?
It's a yes that's waiting to see how much energy survives. Did you see the email about volunteering for the open house?
I did. It was very informative.
That's an interesting reaction.
I appreciate how organized they are.
You're not answering the question.
I think it's a great opportunity.
For?
Visibility, community engagement, all the good things.
And your availability?
That's where things get a little less great.
Busy week?
Busy semester.
So you're not signing up.
I didn't say that.
You also didn't say you were.
I support the idea wholeheartedly.
From a distance.
From a realistic assessment of my limits.
That sounds like not wearing a suit.
I prefer to call it a well-dressed boundary.
Before we begin today's lecture, I'd like to briefly mention the seating arrangement for upcoming classes. Students are free to choose where they sit. However, recent observations suggest that those seated closer to the front tend to engage more consistently during group discussions. While participation itself is not graded separately, it often influences how clearly students can articulate their ideas later in written assignments. With several discussion-based activities scheduled this month, students may want to consider how their seating choices support their learning habits.
I'd like to clarify our policy regarding access to lecture recordings. Recordings are provided as a supplementary resource, particularly for reviewing complex material. However, they are not intended to replace in-person attendance. In previous semesters, students who relied heavily on recordings often reported feeling less prepared during collaborative activities. While access to recordings will remain unchanged, students should be aware that some course elements develop primarily through live interaction. As we approach the end of the term, I want to address email communication with instructors. While messages are always welcome, responses may take longer during peak grading periods. Students who send multiple follow-up emails within a short time frame may not receive replies any sooner than those who allow time for review. Planning questions in advance and consolidating them into a single message often leads to clearer and more efficient communication for everyone involved.
People often assume that emotional reactions to art arise automatically from sensory features such as color, harmony, or symmetry. While these features can influence perception, psychological research suggests that aesthetic emotion is not purely sensory, but depends heavily on cognitive appraisal. For instance, viewers may experience a sense of sadness when looking at a painting, even if they cannot identify a specific visual element that causes it. This reaction often stems from how the artwork is interpreted, its subject matter, perceived intention, or historical associations. In other words, emotion emerges not only from what is seen, but from what the viewer believes the artwork represents. This helps explain why the same artwork can evoke different emotional responses across audiences. A painting associated with national trauma may feel solemn to one group, while appearing visually neutral to another, unfamiliar with its context. The emotional response, then, is shaped by meaning rather than by form alone. Psychologists, therefore, argue that aesthetic emotion results from an interaction between perception and interpretation. Rather than being immediate reflexes, emotional reactions to art are constructed experiences, influenced by memory, expectation, and cultural knowledge. Understanding art from this perspective requires attention to both visual stimulus and the mental processes that give it emotional significance.
Listeners often describe certain musical moments as surprising or emotionally powerful, as if the music suddenly does something to them. Psychologists studying music perception suggest that these reactions are closely tied to expectation rather than to sound alone. As listeners become familiar with a musical style, they unconsciously learn its patterns, how melodies typically resolve, or how rhythms tend to repeat. When a composer follows these expectations, the music may feel coherent but predictable. However, when expectations are subtly violated, listeners often experience heightened attention or emotional response. Importantly, this effect depends on balance. If the violation is too extreme, the music may feel confusing rather than expressive. This perspective helps explain why the same piece can affect listeners differently depending on experience. Trained musicians, for example, often anticipate structural changes earlier than non-musicians, which can alter the emotional impact of a passage. What feels unexpected to one listener may feel inevitable to another. From this view, emotional responses to music are not simply reactions to sound, but outcomes of an ongoing predictive process. Music engages the mind by continuously shaping and reshaping expectations, and emotion emerges when those expectations are confirmed, delayed, or gently disrupted.
Environmental policies are often designed with clear goals, such as reducing pollution or protecting specific species. While these goals are important, environmental scientists caution that interventions can trigger feedback effects that are not immediately obvious. For example, restrictions on logging in one region may successfully preserve local forests. However, if demand for timber remains unchanged, production may shift to other regions with weaker environmental protections. In such cases, the overall rate of deforestation may remain the same, or even increase, despite well-intentioned local policies. Similar dynamics appear in wildlife conservation. Protecting a single species without considering its role in a broader ecosystem can alter predator-prey relationships in unexpected ways. A population increase in one species may place new pressure on others, reshaping ecological balance over time. These examples illustrate why environmental scientists increasingly emphasize systems thinking. Effective policy requires anticipating indirect effects and interactions across regions and species. Rather than evaluating success by isolated outcomes, scientists argue for assessing how interventions influence entire environmental networks, often over long timescales.